Okay, welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I come from the acting background.
And I'm Josh Knapp. I'm a broadcast engineer.
Here we go.
All right. Today we're going to focus the main portion of the podcast on the movie Foxcatcher, which, spoiler, I really enjoyed it. So, yeah, that's... Even
though
awesome.
you texted me and said disturbing.
Oh, yeah, it's disturbing.
Yeah.
It's very disturbing.
We'll get there.
But I enjoyed it. It's one of those disturbing movies that I could watch again, unlike Requiem for a Dream or some of these other
Antichrist.
Antichrist.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Stay
we'll
away
get there.
from it type things. Okay. Anyway, but first, Paul has seen a bunch of movies
Yeah, and you just said that you had seen Guardians of the Galaxy in
3D and at home. So I saw it in 3D at the IMAX when it came out, and then I bought the Blu-ray, but I don't have a 3D television. Visited family for the Christmas break, and my parents have a 3D TV, so we watched that. And then I got them Gravity, which I really wanted in 3D, and I really wanted to put that in, but
What is
we didn't
that
have
like
time.
compared to the movies, the TV version? Is it...
Well, I can get a little technical. There's different versions of 3D televisions.
You, the engineer?
That's right. There's different versions of 3D television. Some of the 3D TVs use the whole frame, like all of the pixels, and then they alternate between a particular polarity. They alternate the light between a particular polarity. It's either like right circular, left circular, up and down and left and right. So have you ever worn those or seen people wear those like fishing glasses or driving glasses? They're all like yellow.
Yeah, they're supposed to... something with
Supposed to
ultraviolet.
help with glare
Yeah.
and ultraviolet, all that stuff.
Right.
Well, a big portion of that is glare, helping with glare.
Right.
And so the way they help with glare is they have a polarization on the lenses that only allow a certain polarity of light through and don't allow, I think it's vertical polarity light through. And that's what cuts down on glare. Well, that's how they do 3D movies, is one eye is polarized one way and the other eye is polarized the other way. And then it depends on how the TV's set up. The really, really expensive 3D TVs are set up so that all of the pixels change that polarity every other half frame. So like your mind can't tell that it's going back, that you're only seeing one eye's worth of information at a time. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is pretty crazy.
It's hard to wrap your brain around all
Yeah,
that.
the problem with that is that you need glasses that have batteries in them, and they need to have clear. Oh yeah, they have these little watch batteries, and they have that clear sight to the TV, and it's kind of a mess. But you get the full resolution of the picture.
So does it look as three-dimensional as it does when you see it in the theater?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
does.
there's technical issues with this because this technology is a couple years old, but not...
It's not going to catch on.
No.
I mean 4K would be the next thing that could
Right.
catch on, but it may not catch on either. We'll see.
So you have to
It's
buy a
too early.
3D TV, glasses that need batteries, which is no different than a remote that needs batteries. That's fine. And then you have to buy the movies in 3D.
Yeah, that's right. Now,
So can you play a movie that's in 3D on a regular DVD player if your 3D stuff...
No. So, but when I bought Guardians of the Galaxy, it came with 2 discs.
Right, that's what they're doing now
Yeah,
with
it came
Blu-ray.
with a 3D Blu-ray and a regular Blu-ray.
Oh,
So I
okay.
just gave the 3D Blu-ray to my parents because it's like I can't do anything with it because I don't have a 3D TV.
Right.
But I still have the Blu-ray at home that I can watch, the 2-dimensional Blu-ray
Right.
that I can watch at home. So yeah, I mean that in and of itself is kind of cool that they're actually giving you a 3D version and a 2D version. You can kind of like disseminate them as you want, like I was doing. But their television uses a different technology where you don't have to buy the really fancy glasses. You just get the same glasses that you would get in a theater.
Oh, okay.
But the issue with that is that the resolution of the picture gets dropped by half because it puts both left eye and right eye on the screen at the same time. But the only way to do that is to only use half of the pixels for the left eye and half of the pixels for the right eye. So it's like reducing the resolution by half.
So it looks blurrier?
It doesn't look blurrier. It looks
Like, what does that mean to a person who doesn't know pixels and all?
So it would be like watching a DVD versus a Blu-ray.
Okay.
So
okay.
it's not blurrier. It's still in focus and all that stuff. But edges are maybe a little bit more
Right.
jagged. And I mean, for somebody like me who I spend all day looking at pictures.
HD TV.
Yeah, and I spend all day scrutinizing, like, does this look right? Does that look good? What's going on there? You know, but for most people, they probably wouldn't notice it. But it was a good exercise for me to kind of see the difference between the two. But I still enjoyed it though. I
That's
still
cool,
enjoyed
though.
It, yeah, and I got to see Despicable Me 2. No, Despicable Me in 3D.
That's
which was
cool.
Yeah. That
So
was a
did
lot
they
of fun.
stock up on a whole bunch of 3D stuff when they?
Yeah, my sister got them that movie, and then I got them Gravity, and then I just gave them the Guardians of the Galaxy one because I can't really use
Gravity's
it. So
probably beautiful.
I bet it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never saw it in 3D, so
they're gonna have a great time.
they're gonna be excited.
Yeah, see, I didn't see that in 3D either. I just didn't. I'm kind of glad in the long run because it had me already.
that's great.
Yeah, I couldn't breathe during that movie, you know. And I watched it a second time, and I was like, I'm having the same. It affected me. You know,
Yeah.
the 100 or what is it, an hour and a half long, 90 minutes.
Real time, pretty
Yeah,
much.
exactly. It took my breath away. So watching it in regular film version, not 3D, I came out of the theater and I was like, okay, it was probably beautiful in 3D, but I'm glad because
Yeah.
living it alone was intense enough, let alone with the 3D effect and so forth and so on. So in the end, I was glad I didn't see it in 3D. If I had an opportunity sometime in the future to see it in 3D in the theater, I would go and see that. They do all these different types of things in LA where they'll re-show something that's 10 years old, 3D, sometimes
Yeah.
meant to be in 3D, sometimes not. So, you know, you never
cool.
know. You never know where you're going to see it again.
That's cool.
All right, so I've seen a ton of stuff because that's what I did for my Christmas break. Started with The Most Wanted Man with Philip Seymour Hoffman. Now, do you know who directed that?
Philip Seymour Hoffman. No, John Turturro.
No.
Dang it.
No.
Dang it.
Anton Corbijn, do you know who he is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, do you know what he's famous for?
Music videos.
And being U2's photographer.
Oh,
That's pretty much the Joshua Tree is because of him. The Joshua Tree album, which I believe he's German, and I believe I'm mispronouncing his last name, but that's how it sounds to me.
Corbijn.
Yeah, it's got that weird IJ thing going on, but he couldn't say Joshua Tree. He says Joshua Tree. So that's why sometimes I refer to you as Joshua. So they used to give him a hard time when they were doing the photo shoot for the Joshua Tree. They were trying to get him to say Joshua Tree, which was Joshua. Well, anyway, his claim to fame is U2's photographer, and then he became REM's photographer back in the day, and he started directing movies. He directed that movie with George Clooney.
The American.
Yes, which I was perplexed by. I didn't really...
I didn't see it.
Yeah,
the only movie of his I've seen is Control, about the... I lost it now. It's about I'm gonna have to look it up.
That's okay. I have not seen this one. So how many films has he made?
I think only 4.
So this would be his fourth one.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely say see it. You know, Philip Seymour Hoffman's performances in it. It's Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's one of his last, and he's impeccable. Robin Wright is in it, which I wasn't
right.
expecting. Yeah, and Rachel McAdams is in it too, and she does this German accent that's dead on, dude. Like if I had never seen her before, I would have no idea that she was American. It's got these great actors in it. The plot's interesting. And it keeps you. It's a spy movie, basically. You know, it's an adult spy movie. It's not anything you would sit down a 10-year-old and go, okay, watch this. But yeah, it's definitely a must see if you're interested in those people. You find it yet?
Joy Division. That's the band that Control was based on.
Oh, so it's a documentary about
it's
concert film?
Nope. It's a retelling of the beginnings of that band and the lead singer, who, spoiler alert, killed himself, Ian Curtis. So that he directed that. He directed The American. He directed A Most Wanted Man. And then those are the only ones that are feature-length movies. The other ones are music videos.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, U2, Metallica, Depeche Mode.
He's a very
Bryan
smart
Adams.
man because he's minimalistic in his approach. There's a very famous... Well, not famous, but the song is pretty big. The song "One" by U2. They had like 4 different videos, and his video was depicting the way that the British came over and hunted buffalo. When they first came over, they didn't know how to do it, so they would just herd them over cliffs until they just stopped falling over the cliffs. Like they would just so they would waste all these buffaloes, and he attributed that or compared that to how we were first treating people who were HIV positive back in the early 80s. And all of the proceeds to the one single went to AIDS research. You know, the U2's all about that, especially AIDS in Africa.
Yeah.
And Anton Corbijn's video is just the buffaloes running slowly in black and white. And every once in a while, this flash of a daisy comes up or a flower comes up, smell the flowers while you can, that kind of stuff. And they actually played that video during their concert. Very cool.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, for as big as a band as they are, they do these small minimalistic things. There's a lot of noises and sounds in their music that most people don't even really listen to. People like me who, you know, have heard it a million times.
Sure.
They're like, what is that? And I love that about them. They're huge. They're, you know, the biggest band in the world, whatever. We need to get away from that. But they do these small things that have such heart and such texture, and they surround themselves with these people who, like Anton Corbijn, now has the opportunity. I'm sure he probably would have weaved his way into directing eventually anyway, but because of their whole connection, you know, he's now doing these films with Philip Seymour Hoffman. And I can't remember the chronological order of what Philip Seymour Hoffman did last, but I think this is his last film. I'm not sure.
Maybe he did. I mean, I guess Hunger Games: Mockingjay came out,
which they dedicated to him, but A Most Wanted Man came out before that.
Yes.
So, but I think that was his last film that he actually filmed, and Mockingjay came out first or last. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he also, and this is the one that I got mixed up with. There's a movie called God's Pocket that John Slattery from Mad Men directed, and it has Philip Seymour Hoffman and John Turturro in it. That's where I got those.
I like all those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. What's his name? John Slattery? Is that his name?
John Slattery, yeah.
I didn't know he directed anything.
Well, I think he had. I mean, a lot of those actors on Mad Men started directing episodes of Mad Men.
Good for them.
I mean, John Hamm's done it, and John Slattery's done it, and Slattery parlayed it into a feature film. So that's cool.
So listen to this rundown of the movies I've watched recently. Talk about eclectic, sort of a mess in a way. So Most Wanted Man, I talked about Happy Christmas with You off podcasts with Anna Kendrick and Melanie Linsky, who I love.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's what did you call it? It's
Mumblecore. No, I mean, it's.
Well, you have to, if you've seen the movie, you kind of have to chuckle because they do sort of do this mumbling conversation thing,
and it's not scripted strictly,
and you can kind of tell. But if you like these people, it's worth watching. It also has Lena Dunham in it, and then it also has this other gentleman in it who plays Melanie Linsky's husband, who I don't know his name right off the bat, and I really liked him too. And the best performance comes from this almost 2-year-old baby in the movie.
Really?
Yeah, you can tell he's not being manipulated. He's just being himself in their improv, and he's brilliant. This little kid, you got to see it just for the kid.
Okay.
So Happy Christmas, which is not altogether a happy Christmas, by the way. Maleficent with Angelina Jolie, which I thought was really well done. I thought it explained why is she so pissed off. Why is this woman who we've seen all our childhood so mad at the world? It puts an explanation to it. I thought she did good. It has District 9 guy in it.
Sharlto Copley.
Yes, he plays the protagonist, if you want to call him that, because they kind of go back and forth because she gets really mad because he does something, so forth and so on. But anyway, I watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou again. Yeah, that's very interesting to watch a second and third time. You can't go wrong.
And you can see that's in 2000, and you can see George Clooney's comedy chops right there. I mean,
no doubt he has a way of staying right under the line of over the top.
And he mugs not
but
at the
gets
camera,
away
but he
with
mugs,
it.
Yeah, adjacent to the camera.
Perfectly.
But it works.
Like when he sings the song in the concert, close to the end of the film. Well, I guess closer to the end than the beginning. He doesn't understand why everybody's hooping and hollering, because by this point the song's become a hit.
Yep.
But they have no idea. His look on his face, he's like, what are they clapping about? It's brilliant. And, there's just one great performance after the other. And the way that they based it on the Odyssey and the name manipulation and the whole Cyclops with John Goodman. Brilliant. When he picks up that branch or breaks off the branch, you're like, that's exactly what happens in the original story. How did they figure out how to write it around that? So anybody who hasn't seen that should see that. I saw, well, of course, because it was A Christmas Story, which is on, you've seen that, right?
Yeah, it's on like 24 hours a day on TBS.
You can't go wrong with that. It's infinitely quotable. My brother loves that. He finds a way of always fitting it into the conversation on Christmas Day every single year. And it's appropriate. It's completely natural and organic. It's not like he's waiting to say a line for the movie. His wife was getting up from the table to get something for the kids, and he quoted the line about Mom hasn't had a hot meal in 14 years, and it was just perfect. So anyway, Christmas Story, you can't go wrong with that. Have you seen Scrooged? Yeah. With Bill Murray? Another one of my favorite. I actually got it on Roku and took a couple days to rewatch it because, work and stuff like that. But yeah, that's one that goes missed when people talk about Christmas movies.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but I mean, for me, I saw it a bunch because it was on TV a lot, when I was younger.
It's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, it's like Bill Murray. But yeah, it is like Groundhog Day. And I think that the way that he played that character was better than, he was able to infuse it with comedy, but then you could also see that there was a definite seriousness to the role.
Yeah, we should have seen it coming. We should have seen what he's done since then, but I never saw it back then. It makes me tear up when the little boy gives his line at the end and Bill Murray goes, "Did I miss something?" And he's like, "Yeah, God bless us, everyone." And if you haven't seen the movie, I'm not going to give it away. But it's really touching, and Alfre Woodard's in it, and the cast is spread all the way. It's down the line really well done. And it's over-the-top comedy, but it's another retelling of a story that we've heard a gazillion times, a gazillion different ways, but they find a clever way to do it. Sure. Tiny Tim is not who you think he is. Bob Cratchit is not who she is, so forth and so on, without giving too much away. All right, this is where it gets deep. I went and saw the Battle of the Five Armies. Okay, first and foremost, in Maryland, where my brother lives, in the theaters, they have reclining chairs.
Whoa.
Like a recliner in a den.
You mean like not the ones that just
bend
back a little bit?
Full-fledged, like recliners.
They pop up, feet pop up?
Feet pop up completely.
What?
You can lay almost complete. Yeah, I was like, is this paradise or what? Is this heaven? And my brother's like, no, it's Iowa, because he was a seat behind, because you have to buy your seat, just like at a concert.
Or like the ArcLight in California, the same thing. Like that's in Hollywood, where you have to buy your particular seat.
I've never heard of that before.
Now, the only time I've done that was in Sacramento. The IMAX downtown is that way also. You have to buy your particular seat, but there's a small amount of seats compared to, the size of Sacramento. So yeah, they have assigned seats or whatever you want to call it.
The seat is huge. I was wondering how much money they were gaining versus losing, because you can walk between the seats without ever touching another human being. Like,
That's
how
cool.
in regular theaters, excuse me, in the middle, there's at least 2 feet between once your reclining chair is all the way up and the next seat. So you can walk safely by without ever disturbing anything. It's amazing. Awesome. I almost fell asleep twice because it was so comfortable.
Is the cost like twice as much?
$10.
$10.
Yeah, that's the first thing I asked, because they treated me. I was like, is this a regular cost of a movie, or is it like glasses for 3D or something? They were like, no. And apparently this movie theater has doubled or tripled their audience because
of the amenities.
Yeah. It's amazing, dude.
Makes sense. I'd want to go there every time I watch a movie.
It's amazing. It feels like you're watching a movie in your house.
That's cool.
I kept turning to my nephews because they got sick of me after a while. I kept going, this is amazing. They're like, it's not that great, dude. Relax. I'm like, no, this is amazing. Because, you're setting in for a 2.5, 2:45, hour movie.
Especially for a Hobbit movie.
Yeah. Anyway, if you've seen the other movies, go see it. It's not anything out of the ordinary. We can talk about Peter Jackson and his Hobbit.
Well, I have to catch up because I haven't seen any of the Hobbits.
Yeah. I don't know what to say without. I don't want to be disrespectful to him.
What we've said, I think, in the past, as we've talked about it, is that if I wanted to see the Hobbits, I probably would have seen them by now, and I'm gonna have to work to see them. I think.
You're gonna.
I'm gonna have to sit down and say, like, I need to do this.
You're gonna punch in.
Yeah.
And you're right. We have talked about this because I still wish that Guillermo del Toro had directed it, them, whatever.
Or even if it was just one, if they could figure out a way to do it. Or
somebody else, because I think he's too close to it. No one's telling him no after $300 billion franchise.
Well, he's made an industry on
totally.
This property.
And it's beautiful. It looks beautiful. It's stunning, and it's filmed very well. And he has that new... not 35 millimeter anymore, but it's something like faster frame rate, which means you get a clearer picture and a more detailed picture.
Well, no, it just means that there's twice as many pictures hitting your eye in the same amount of time. So usually movies are shot in 24 frames a second. His movies, or I don't know if he did this last one in 48 frames a second or not, but he shot in 48 frames per second. So you're getting, so motion, a lot of times when you see a pan across, like this is the perfect example, Star Wars on Tatooine, where they pan across, like right in the first movie, they like pan across the desert.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes, you kind of see it kind of like judder. You kind of see it go boom, 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 boom. And any kind of like pans like that over a uniform background, you'll kind of see that judder. We're used to it. We're used to seeing that in the movie theater. But on TV, the frame rates is a little bit higher, and so it seems a little bit more, it seems a little bit smoother. Video games are much higher than TV and movies. So as you pan across, looking at something on a video game, it's seamless. There's no judder at all. And so that's what I think they're trying to do, is give us, a different experience, like more like you're there because the frame rate's higher. Because I mean, for us, our frame rate is.
But that doesn't have something to do with it having more detail in the picture. No. Okay, because there was a lot of complaints about the first one of how you could see prosthetic noses and stuff like that. So maybe it's just. I mean, it didn't.
I mean, it probably got shot in 4K or 6K or whatever.
Right.
I think they're up to like 8K cameras. I don't know if they're using them for. I mean, you can't display them. There's no 8K displays, but there are 4K displays, so ultra high definition displays, and a lot of Gone Girl was shot in 4K. I mean, Zodiac was shot in now they're shot in HD anyway. But I mean, a lot of these movies were shot in 4K, even though they haven't been able to be projected at this high resolution. But in the future, they will be. All the James Bond movies got transitioned into 4K.
Well, the details in his film, it's impeccable. But I just can't figure out why he wanted to tell this story the way that he did. But we can talk about it in advance. And then I'm going to mention it because I saw it. I watched Nymphomaniac.
Both of them?
Volume 1.
Okay, see, that's where I stopped.
Well,
and maybe I need to keep going.
You saw the first one completely from beginning, middle to end?
Yes.
Okay, well, we have planned from day one of this podcast to do an episode on difficult movies. And we can save this for that.
Yeah.
But I will say this. What is it? Lars von
Trier.
Trier. Okay. I always think it's Tears. What he does is he pushes boundaries, and I don't know if they're on purpose, if he's showing things. We've talked about when they film sex scenes in movies and the arm is just over top of the breast so you're not seeing anything, or the knee of the man is just so there's nothing showing. You're like, even if you're not registering it on a conscious level, you're going, something's wrong with this. That wouldn't look like that. Mm-hmm. You don't see people in their natural and habitat, if you will, especially in sex scenes. They have to shoot them in certain ways so bits and pieces don't show. He doesn't care about that at all.
No.
But I can't tell whether or not that is a good thing or that's distracting from whatever the story he's trying to tell. And it has all this deep thought processes going on about fly fishing and the Trinity and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait, hold up. What is this? And then I remember who it is.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, let me just take it in for what it is. The performances are outstanding with the exception of Shia LaBeouf's accent, which I think they should have just made mention in the beginning that he used to live in America and he's never really grown out of his American accent. And that's why he's got this messed up accent, and just covered it that way because it's not very good. I mean, unfortunately, I'm behind him getting a supporting actor nomination this year for Fury. But this performance, he's good, but the accent. But we'll talk about it in the future. But can you imagine? Look at all those movies I saw.
That's
Maleficent to Nymphomaniac Volume 1. What? That's like schizophrenia movie watching. But
it's a little all over the place. Yeah.
Well, that's me though. I'll take it in for what it is. I went to Redbox and I was looking, and there's a lot of movies that have come out. It's overwhelming sometimes. I'm like, I want to see that. I want to see that. I want to see that. And then I go, okay, well, Maleficent is one of those ones I want to see, but it's pretty low on the list because I've got all this other stuff. So let me go with that one because that somehow sets me up for not being let down because I already, you know what I mean? Like, if that makes any sense.
You're building up as opposed to like, boom, let's knock out the big ones.
I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it. I recommend it. I would see it.
Okay.
I would say see it. Yeah.
All right, great.
All right, here we go.
Here we go.
Nymphomaniac. I want to say this before we get into Foxcatcher.
Yeah.
Could there have been a movie more disturbing this year than Nightcrawler? The answer after seeing Nightcrawler, maybe not. Maybe we saw the most disturbing movie of the year.
Yeah.
And then came Foxcatcher.
Yeah, but it was disturbing for a much different reason, I think. I don't like the IMDb description.
It's like 3 times in a row we haven't enjoyed IMDb's description.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's great, but I think for like the big blockbuster movies, it's really good. But then for these, it's like there's too much. So I think that this movie is about the relationship between 3 men, 2 of which happen to be brothers. But it's how they interact with each other and the baggage that they bring to each of the individual relationships and how that plays out over time. It's based on a true story, but I think that we should probably focus on the movie as opposed to the true story. I didn't do any reading on this true story, and I'm so glad that I didn't.
You mean before the movie?
Yeah, before the movie.
No, I knew nothing about it.
Okay, me either.
I had never laid eyes on any of those guys before. No, I don't even remember any news stories about them or anything.
Yeah.
And John DuPont is somebody you would remember if you saw one time.
Yeah.
Because then I went and looked him up.
Yeah, and from what I've read, it sounds like he's crazier than they portray him in the movie.
I don't know what the word is. Crazy is
Okay.
not the word.
You're right.
I am perplexed at trying to figure out what the adjectives that fit this film are. This is a compliment. This is not This is a must-see for film goers who enjoy movies, but I'm not going to tell just anybody to go see this movie because they're going to be mad at me. Because 1, the pacing, and 2, the storytelling is... But anyway, you were getting ready to say...
I was just going to say that we should focus on the movie itself and not on discrepancies between timelines for the movie versus the real timeline and all this stuff. Because once I started reading about it, they're from what I can see...
the whole way it ended is completely
different.
different.
There are discrepancies, but we should focus on the movie as opposed to...
There's enough there.
The real world. So you've got... I mean, the characters are John DuPont, insanely rich. I mean, he's just crazy rich. He's got an 800-acre estate, and he is interested in wrestling. We can explore why he's interested in wrestling. But he's interested in wrestling, so he talks to Mark Schultz, who's played by Channing Tatum, who just won gold in the 1984 Olympics. Mark Schultz's brother, Dave, who I believe won gold?
Yes.
Okay, in the 84
Remember,
Olympics.
because they mistake him in the beginning of the film for his
right.
brother.
Well, they didn't mistake him, but at the very beginning, he goes and talks with a school.
And they think it's the brother who's supposed to be there, so she's trying to write him a check.
That's right.
And he goes, he won gold too.
Yeah, but his brother was supposed to be there, but his brother couldn't make it.
Right.
So the Channing Tatum, Mark, which is weird because Channing Tatum's character is Mark, and Mark Ruffalo's character's name is Dave. Awkward. So we'll just say Mark and Dave, I guess.
Beginning of this conversation.
So anyway, those guys getting Steve Carell's character John DuPont contacts Mark and Dave, wants both of them to go to this amazing training facility so they can train for the Olympics. Mark ends up going. Dave stays in Utah, which is where his family is.
Right, he's the father of 2 kids, young kids.
Yeah, and the
estate's name is Foxcatcher.
Yeah, that's the estate's name is Foxcatcher, and the beginning is beautiful. I didn't even think about that until now. The title sequence was similar to the game title sequence.
Yeah, I remember.
Where it's 8mm, or I think it's 8mm film, and it's just kind of like the beginnings of color film, of like consumer color film, which that the DuPonts would have had. The first 8mm film camera that people could own, they probably owned it. And so it's just all about these dogs like running after foxes and people.
Well, the
on
hunting
horses
that went on the
exactly.
estate grounds.
And so you can see kind of why it's called Foxcatcher.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there's a relationship. You see an established relationship between the brothers from the very beginning, and it's perfectly done in their training ritual. their
with
wrestling
not a
training
word
ritual.
spoken.
Exactly, because they've done it. They do it every day.
Yeah, not
mean,
a
it's-
word is spoken, and you understand their relationship immediately,
Mm-hmm.
and you understand him being the younger brother and being in the shadow of his older brother from
Yep.
that opening sequence with his lecture and how she, like I just said, she wants to write the
Yeah.
brother a check, and he's like, no, I'm me, that's him.
That's him. We're separate people.
We both won gold, but
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
And he sets it out. You know right then and there.
It's a chip on his shoulder, or in the shadow of, I guess.
Right,
He's
exactly.
in the shadow of his
without
brother.
hardly anything said.
Yeah. And then
That's
you
going to
can
be a
see-
continuous theme, by the way.
Yeah, and you can see how the older brother kind of understands how the younger brother feels, just kind of like how he's like, "How's it going, buddy?" You know, like he is there for his younger brother, and you can tell that it's a close relationship. By the way, they look like wrestlers, not physically, in how they carry themselves. I mean, I wrestled for a few years in middle school and high school, and there are guys that I've worked with, like at TV station and stuff. I can tell if they've been wrestlers
By their body language.
by how they walk,
Yeah.
by how they carry themselves, by how big their neck is a lot of times,
Yeah.
because you do a lot of like neck exercises and bridging exercises where you're building up your neck muscles, because that's one of the biggest things that can keep you from getting pinned is holding your whole body up by your head and
Right.
by your neck. So anyway, the way that they walk, and the best way I can describe it is that it's kind of like
Cro-Magnon.
it's kind of like they walk bow-legged, but their feet are always underneath them, which is a big deal in wrestling too, where you have to be ready to move at any time. You have to be ready to react at any time, and you have to be centered. You can't be all spread around and loosey-goosey, because you have to be able to move any way that you need to at the drop of a hat. So the way that they walk, even when they're not wrestling or not on the mat,
Right.
just the way that they walk and the way they carry themselves, it was perfect. And from what I've read, you know, it sounds like they trained for like 6 months before even starting shooting, and every night after shooting they would train.
It makes perfect sense. See, I thought that was I didn't know that. I didn't know that their whole body language was about. That makes perfect sense, because dancers, you can tell a ballerina because of the way her toes
Feet.
point out. Yeah.
Yeah, we just saw the Nutcracker this weekend.
Oh,
and
cool.
There was these like little kids up there for the Nutcracker, and they were just standing there, and everybody's feet were
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Which to me, I can't do that.
5 minutes, I'm
normally.
done. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
And that was just their resting position. Is just boom. I'm just standing here, and that's how they automatically go to.
Well, that goes on for the rest of their life. They will if they continue
Probably.
to dance for a little while in their life, their posture and their whole body language becomes about that. So I thought that was just I thought the brothers walked alike because they were brothers, and
No,
this was
because they're wrestlers.
That makes it better.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's-
I thought it was genius to begin with, that they were physicalizing the characters. I thought people were going to think it was a tad bit over the top,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm thinking maybe they did walk like that. But it's not. It's a wrestling thing. Brilliant.
Yeah. And then there's subtle things that they did. I mean, I guess looking at pictures of the older brother, he had a receding hairline
Yeah.
and a big bushy beard. Well, they did that for Mark Ruffalo. And then the younger brother, Channing Tatum, I thought that it was like a fake chin or something, some prosthetic, but it wasn't. It was like an appliance that he put in his mouth that made his chin stick out more.
Like Marlon Brando with the cotton balls.
Yeah,
and,
kind of, but
yeah.
I think it was like a braces of some kind that he put in his mouth that made his chin jut out a little bit more. But it was something to where, like, even from the teaser posters that we saw, whatever. Remember when we got all excited
Yeah.
about it, like in June?
Yeah.
And that right there, you could see his face was different.
Oh yeah.
I didn't really know how. And I think he had a fake nose or something too, like a bigger
I think he
nose.
did something with his ears too. They pushed out
They
his
did
ears.
cauliflower ears.
Yeah.
So like in wrestling, there's a lot of rubbing, and so you get kind of like this. You can get bacteria and stuff in your ears, and you can get infected. So
Gross.
yeah, it is gross. And then once that gets infected, and once that it starts to get kind of like your ear kind of gets to be one big chunk of something instead
Nice.
of little pieces of cartilage.
Good
So
Lord.
you gotta kind of go all in.
Talk
with
about
wrestling.
commitment.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and so I think so. That's the first relationship, and then once Mark moves to Foxcatcher Farms, and he starts to train, you see another relationship develop between John DuPont and Mark, And I mean, do
What
you want to
is-
talk about that?
Yeah, I'm not because
I don't know where to start.
I don't either. And I knew coming out of the movie I was going to sound like a person who'd never seen a movie before, because I don't know what to say about this film. I don't understand their relationship. I don't understand what I saw. I know what I felt, and I think I did that separation thing again immediately, because it didn't feel an emotional connection to anything, and that's not a bad thing per se. I realized that Bennett Miller, the director, has a thumbprint, and his thumbprint is complete, stark. Some people might say sad. There's a atmosphere about his films where silence is way more important than anything. It's deafening. It's like being in a dark room with no sound and you hear that ringing. There's a ringing in that film, even though it's not there in my subconscious or maybe conscious. I'm not sure. The silence is deafening.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of score either. I mean, I was
None.
listening for it, and it wasn't happening.
No, not at all. And that's all purposeful.
Yeah.
Here's what I was thinking about today. It dawned on me that he is a fly on the wall director. It's almost like those actors didn't know they were being filmed for that particular moment. He just set up the camera and said, okay, I'll be back in a little bit. Why don't you guys rehearse? I'm not sure what his technique is, but it's almost like he's not trying to set up a shot. He's not trying to pose people. He's not trying to direct. He's allowing people to be in their natural habitat, in character in their natural habitat. He does it in Capote. It's a little bit different in Moneyball because it's a different subject matter. It's a little bit more lighthearted. Thank God. Oh my gosh, what's up in that guy's brain?
Speaking of Moneyball and of Bennett Miller, like I didn't, when I saw Capote when it came out, not in the theater but rented it, and I didn't think thing one about the director. I saw Moneyball and I was excited about it because of the performance that Jonah Hill gave. Brad Pitt turns in, I think, a normal performance for him, which is great. And I know people don't, they think he's just whatever, but I think he's a great actor. But
Me
anyway,
too.
And Philip Seymour Hoffman was awesome in the amount of time that he was on screen. And I didn't think thing one about the director. And then this movie comes along and I wasn't excited about it because of the director. But now that we start like moving through talking about this, I didn't analyze those first two movies as much as I've been thinking about this movie, knowing that we're going to be doing the podcast. And he does have a fingerprint or thumbprint.
It's almost like he's not there, but he's there. He obviously has to be there. He will be nominated for Best Director because what he does, and I said minimalistic earlier, and I mean that again, it's so simple what he does that it's mind-blowingly complex. I can't comprehend what I saw. So back to their relationship. I don't know what John DuPont wanted, because later on in the film, he does get the brother Mark to come and move to the Foxcatcher estate.
And it seems like the only reason he does that is because things are kind of going off the rails, wrestling-wise.
I think that was his intention from day one.
He wanted things to go off the rails. John DuPont did.
No.
Okay.
No. Who knows what that man wanted? Who knows? God only knows.
Sure.
And I don't use those terms lightly ever. Because I don't even want to know. Because even the 2 hours I spent watching somebody's interpretation of him was enough. Like, I don't want to watch any more documentaries about him. But my point was, if you remember the beginning of the film, Mark Schultz, he is talking to those other guys, and they're trying to get him to do something outside of what he's already doing. Or he just gets a promotion or something, right? He kind of gets on the map in a different kind of way. And I think that John DuPont went through the brother to get to the older brother, went to the younger brother to get to the older
brother's Mark to get to the older brother
yeah,
Dave.
exactly.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I got it mixed up there.
Sure.
You were right. You were going to get it mixed up.
It is confusing.
It is. Okay, so Dave, the younger brother.
Dave's the older brother.
God bless me. Okay, Mark Ruffalo, right. Okay,
Got it.
Channing Tatum.
Yep. Let's just do that.
The younger brother, fair enough. Can't get John DuPont's name wrong, though. You cannot get it wrong because it is there forever inside the front part of my brain. I don't know if I want it there.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that I think whatever John DuPont's magical powers were, he foresaw that he had to get the younger brother first before he got the older brother. Because remember, he tried to entice the older brother, and the older brother's like,
"You're not going to buy him," is what
Yeah.
is what the younger brother says.
Yeah.
You can't buy him.
yeah. And then they go and meet, and he's with his kids. The older brother's with his kids, Dave, Mark Ruffalo, and basically is having a day with his kids, and his wife doesn't even stand up to meet John DuPont, and the younger brother, Channing Tatum, gets upset with that. You didn't even stand up, he says to her. Well, they're like, we're a human being. That's a human being. We said hello. We were polite. What do you want from us? So by that point, the younger brother is wrapped around John DuPont's finger. And I think it all was John DuPont's way of getting the older brother there too. Because why does he do what he does at the end of the film if he hadn't been focused on the older brother this whole entire time? Why does he do what he does to the
okay.
Why? I want to say this first.
That's fine.
This movie doesn't give you any answers. It only gives you questions.
Okay.
I wrote it down. I had to say it. Sorry.
No, that's fine. And I'd say, if you're interested in a well-directed, well-acted movie that is sparse as far as there's not a lot of stuff going on other than these relationships, and everything that happens in the movie services these relationships. I'd say definitely go watch it. But if you don't like shows like The Office or things like that where there's awkwardness, then don't see this movie.
Oh, there is nothing but that.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the point
But
about...
I guess where I'm going with this is that we're going to have to move into spoilers at some point. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. But when you first approach a subject, I kind of like to talk around it at first because it's not about what happens in the plot, because the narrative is, what is the story? There's not really a beginning, middle, and end to this story. It's not a slice of life. It's not like they're seeing the middle part of this person's... It's not like a husband and wife get married and they have a baby and you see the baby when the baby's 3 years old. You didn't see them get married. You didn't see the baby get born. You just see the baby at 3 years old and what happens in that baby's life for that year. That's a slice of life movie.
Yeah.
That's sort of similar to this, but it spans a big gap of time. All right, so back to your point about what was John DuPont's relationship with the younger brother. I have no idea because I've read a lot of reviews afterwards, and normally I don't do that before we talk about it, but I was so perplexed, second time used, that I was trying to grasp how to speak about this film because I felt some kind of homoerotic overtones to their
Well, there was
relationship.
one scene was very homoerotic. Yes.
The one at night?
No, the one where they're on the porch and there's a lot of cocaine around, and the younger brother is John DuPont's sitting on the chair, on the rocking chair, and then Channing Tatum he's cutting John DuPont's hair, and he's takes a hit of whatever cocaine, a line of cocaine, and then he's in really short shorts and like a cut off shirt or something. Do you remember that scene?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
But that didn't ring as strange. Gosh, see, I don't know what the adjectives are because I don't want to say strange like it's a bad thing because it was just odd. Their relationship was just odd. There's that scene, and then there's the scene where he gets called to have a match with John DuPont. It's in the middle of the night, and it's really shot strangely. It looks like a wrestling match, and then the camera comes in really close to Channing Tatum's.
And you see,
but it looks like John DuPont is having sex with him. If you were to just see it right then and there, and just hear it, and what it sounds like at the time, you would say they're having sex. That's what it looked like to me. And then the whole group thing that happened where John DuPont started when he had all the wrestlers in the room and they were drinking and having a good time.
That one I think sets up the second one. So like that scene is the first time when you see him wanting to get involved physically with the wrestling and with the wrestlers.
An odd way, dude. Like he grabs that one guy, doesn't grab him, he goes to wrestle him, but the guy
falls over, and then he like fakes falling over and grabs the guy in the legs, and then everybody kind of like, it seems like they all kind of understand this kind of like it's more of like they are all prisoners or kidnapped, and what's that called? Stockholm syndrome?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And they're like, this is a good deal we've got here. We don't have to pay for anything. We've got all of this, whatever, food or whatever the heck they were getting at the time. They get to wrestle all day and get paid $25,000 a year.
So it's okay if we let a grown man grope us?
No. So they're saying like, you know what? If, it's kind of funny that he wants to be involved with all of us. So let's just, let's have fun. But I'm guessing at some point it definitely gets weird. That seems to be the first time when that situation happened.
Here's what solidified, because, he did Capote, and obviously Truman Capote was a homosexual. So the themes have been in Bennett Miller films before, and the suppression of who you are and or the repression, if you will, is a theme in Capote, because you're really never sure what his relationship with that other guy is, although you know that that's his partner and has been for decades at this point, even though that relationship's a little off-putting. It seems like one person's more invested in the Capote relationship. It seems like his partner's more invested emotionally than Capote is. Like he could take her to leave it. Sort of the same way John DuPont is, on some kind of level. Bennett Miller has an eye for a character I would have no idea how to tell you the story about, but yet he does that. He tells you these people's stories, and I'm not sure I get it. And I'm not sure I want to get it, but I took a lot away from it. But really quick, back to the whole thing. Remember when Mark, the younger brother, says to the older brother, you and I both know I've got to get out of here. I've got to leave Foxcatcher Estate. You and I both know it. Well, why does he say it like that? The older brother has no idea what he's been through. Doesn't know he's been abusing drugs, which was a strange twist. I had no idea that was coming. He didn't know that he was drinking, that he had put himself in basically solitude in the house, started eating, gorging, and all that other craziness. So there's a lot of themes going on. Back to the relationship, I'm not sure. I think Bennett Miller is smart enough as a director to allow you to fill in whatever your experience in life is. So if you have ever been John DuPont, if you've ever been one of those wrestlers, it's going to ring something true. Not meaning a wrestler or a very rich person.
You're saying but in that particular person in that relationship,
yes,
in a representative relationship.
Yeah, you would feel awkward if you got grabbed by somebody or taken down by somebody, or you would feel like, oh, I really want to grab a hold of that person, but I don't know how. So let me fake fall into him. You can relate to it on some, and you fill in the blanks from your own personal experience. So I'm interested to talk to people about this and find out what they thought about it, because I'd like to hear what other people's experience was, because I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think that, you can look at it from different points of view. You've also got to remember that all of those guys in that room, other than John DuPont, are wrestlers. And so there's not, the first scene with the brothers, there's nothing sexual about what those brothers are doing. It's just, that's what wrestling is. You're going to touch another person.
Right. Absolutely.
And so it's not that it's two men touching, it's the way that John DuPont goes about it. And the wrestlers may have been more it may have been less awkward for them because they're used to, interacting with other men in that way. And also, like I said, the gravy train of John DuPont is saying like, hey, let's have some fun for 5 minutes. And it's not hurting them, in quotes at all. So, but I think
because he never goes about abusing his power that you see in the film.
No. We have to take the film for what it is. Obviously, Bennett Miller, you can think of this as a real thing and a real timeline in the context of the movie, and he chooses when and where to show us these interactions.
Absolutely.
And he's doing that purposefully. And I think this is another one of those movies where it's like there's enough scenes in there. I also heard that the movie was 4 hours long. The first cut of the movie was 4 hours long.
Good.
So I don't know how much of that was wrestling.
Don't take me there. No, thank you. Because I'm not saying that I think that I saw what I saw. I'm saying that if that's what I was seeing, that's my experience, if you will.
Well,
but
I'm
not sure. Like I'm not. There were a couple people in reviews that were going, wait a second, is this a father-son relationship? Is this a brother relationship? Is this a lover relationship? What is this relationship?
I think it's John DuPont. This is my opinion. It's not, I have nothing to back it up empirically, but I think John DuPont, I don't know what his relationship was with his dad other than the real John DuPont. His parents divorced when he was 2. And so his whole life possibly could have been, and he also, the only story we get about him as a kid is he found out that his mom was paying the valet's child to be his friend.
Horrible. And the way it's told, it's devastating.
Yeah.
You feel for him in that moment. Up until that moment, you're kind of like, dude, seriously, you're that guy at the party I don't want to talk to. Like, I don't want to be mean to you, but don't make eye contact with that guy. Because if you get in a conversation with that guy, you're stuck.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be disrespectful to another human being, but yeah. So
Stay away.
obviously they had to pay a person to be his friend when he was a kid.
And it's not that, and it may have had nothing to do with his demeanor as a kid, but that informed. No, it may not have been because he acted a certain way. It may have been because he was so rich and people couldn't relate with him in a normal way.
I think the connotation in that scene is that he's not your average person who walks into a room. He is a special personality.
But look how cold his mom is.
Yeah, but she was nice enough to try to get him a friend, and the only way he could get a friend was to buy him. I think that's proof positive that he's just strange and odd. But wait, I want to go back to what you were talking about father and son. You were saying that his father
left or it was his parents divorced when he was 2.
You took something different from
so
this.
Yeah,
then.
so
See?
moving forward with that, you've got he may not have ever had a true unique, not unique, that's not the word. He may never have had an actual real relationship with another man.
Right. Father-son.
Whether it's father-son or whether it's even best friend or in any way. He never had any kids. He was married for 90 days and then it got annulled.
Yeah, that was weird.
So, yeah, but that all happened before the movie starts. But still, you know that his interactions with other people just haven't been what maybe he desires. And so he's trying to manufacture this, and maybe he honed in on wrestling because it's an inherently masculine sport. He could have picked football, but it's kind of hard to get involved with football from an outsider's point of view. But with wrestling, I mean, he had so much money, he could attract the USA wrestling team, the USA Olympic wrestling team, which there's a scene of him throwing money at them. And I mean, so he's trying to manufacture a relationship, and he sees. And I think he tries it first with the younger brother and tries to get out of it. There's the scene where the younger brother, Mark, it's right after he takes Coke for the first time. He gives this speech that John DuPont wrote out, and he says, I've always been looking for a father figure, and now I found him. So that right there, you can kind of say okay, John DuPont wants to be a father. But he may also not know how to interact with other men, normally.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There are infinite possibilities in such a simplistic way. Mm-hmm. It's simply complex, this film. It really, truly, truly is, because you just kind of proved what I was saying, that I think Bennett Miller is such a genius at just standing back and saying, I'm going to do this, what you take from it. And I think that's what true art is. We've talked about this. Art's in the eye of the beholder. So like I was just saying, you take what you put into the silence. Mm-hmm. And that's what you add to the story. It's like theater, like we were talking about theater being an imaginary world, and that your mind takes over and makes that chair 1,000 different things. Mm-hmm. It's just a chair. In a movie, it'd be just a chair. Mm-hmm. In the theater, it can be a horse and buggy. It can be a kid. It can be a lot of different things. It can be a scooter. It can be 1,000 different things, because our imagination takes over. So I find it interesting that Bennett Miller is able to tap into this in-between world in film. It's the in-between world. It's in between what people say. This film is about what's not being said is more important than what is being said. So I don't know if you want to continue on with that, but I want to go ahead.
Say the last relationship that I want to talk about was the older brother and John DuPont, once they actually get in there. And it seems like DuPont probably pays him an insane amount of money.
It lets him live on the proproperty.
Well,
they bought him houses to live on the property.
Yeah, but he does. But I mean, he probably could have had that from the very beginning. Because I mean, his younger brother lived on the property. So I think at some point it probably got to the point where the older brother Dave was like, I can't not do this because
Yeah,
it
what
would be
was his-
irresponsible for my family for me to turn down this opportunity.
So you think that it was finally money? Because it's not defined at all why he
No.
changed his mind.
He just shows up and
Yeah.
he's like all
I'm
gung
here.
ho.
Yeah, I'm
And
here.
he's got his family, and I mean, you've got they come in on a helicopter. I mean, it's carte blanche and all that stuff. And he was probably looking at that like, this is going to be beneficial for my family. So I'm willing to put up with all this stuff. And it sounds like in real life, Dave Schultz was a huge friend to John DuPont. That is not how it is in the movie.
What do
That
you
is
mean?
not how
A
it's-
huge, like they were friends. They were.
he lived on his property for a long time. So I guess in the real world, John DuPont,
that you didn't want to talk about.
that I know, he spent a bunch of money on, I can't remember what it is, a particular college's wrestling program, and they built a building or something, and then he wanted to be the head coach, so they let him be a head coach. Somebody said that he sexually assaulted them. One of the wrestlers said that he sexually assaulted them, and one of his biggest defenders was Dave Schultz.
Interesting.
And this is less than a year before he kills Dave Schultz.
Interesting.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Oh well, there it is. Well, I mean, it is.
I know
what
it's
it is.
real life, but still, I'm so glad. I'm just so glad that I didn't know that before
That's
the movie.
all in there, though. That's all in there.
And
It's
that's-
not a surprise to me that he was accused of that because it's
Yeah.
in there. It's not a surprise to me that Dave, Mark Ruffalo's character, would have defended him because he does have this turn of page that's never explained. He is very friendly with him. But he's a friendly guy. He's a great
Yeah.
character. Mark Ruffalo will be nominated. That's without a shadow of a doubt. But that's all in there without explaining it. Interesting how he got all that stuff in without ever showing you any of that.
And there's two scenes. I mean, I think that kind of boil down the relationship between those two characters. The first scene, Mark Ruffalo's character, his family's already living on the farm. I don't even know. It may have been after after Mark leaves, but so Dave Schultz is on the farm. He's playing with his family outside in the leaves, and John DuPont drives up and says, hey, how's it going? And before John DuPont can even get out any words, Dave comes out and says, hey, John, it's Sunday. It's family day. I mean, he just shuts him down.
Right.
And it's not a mean thing. It's not a, hey, I don't want to talk to you. Hey, I hate you, whatever. It's just this isn't the time for us to interact because I'm focusing on my family. And so,
Well, he says it like this is Sunday. Like we've
Yeah, like,
talked
whoa,
about this
hey,
before.
yeah.
You've come by on a Sunday before. It sounds like he's mentioned this to him before.
it's like, what aren't you getting about our
it's
situation
Sunday, John.
here?
Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Yeah.
And so,
Fill in the blank with what aren't you getting, John
Exactly.
DuPont?
and so that right there, you can see that get internalized by DuPont. You can probably also see DuPont envying. I mean, it's the ultimate envy of him, possibly, of not having a family. He doesn't have a family to play with on Sunday.
I think he's so not that complex that I don't think he knows why he killed him. I don't think he knows why he decided to get the gun and shoot him that day. I think if it was anything, it was a combination of everything he's been through, and that just happens to be the person he focused it on that day. I don't know. Once again, I have no idea.
It was really scary when he says, right before he shoots him, he says, do you have a problem with me?
Yeah, what was that all about? Like,
And I think it's kind of like, why aren't you accepting me? Or maybe it's like, why aren't you accepting me like you accept your family? And it's like, well, it's because they're my family and you're not. I mean, that's the rational answer, but
I think
that's not
he's
the answer that
just
he would want to hear.
so not a human being I've ever experienced before that I don't want to judge him, but at the same time, I'm going, wait, I cannot relate to this guy on any level whatsoever. I have no idea what his motivation for is anything. And I think the brother just happened to be there. He happened to, who knows? I have no idea.
So do you think
I'm interested. I'm not so sure I want to see it again.
Well, I don't know.
I'm interested why he does the things that he does, but it's not explained.
Do you think that I've been thinking about it, and it seems like this movie should be called There Will Be Blood 2, like that kind of a thing where that was the perfect title for that movie, There Will Be Blood, even though like it's building, and then you see the end of the movie and you totally understand the the reason for the title. This movie didn't need that title necessarily, but it was building the whole time. From the very beginning, it's building to something.
I think it's so even-toned.
And you see what happens.
I kind of disagree with that.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit more even-toned to where, or so silent in its approach and so simplistic in its approach in a good way, that I think I knew he does what he did. I think I knew he shoots that guy on some level. I can't remember if I heard it, read it, or whatever, but I don't feel like the film was building up to that moment. I think it was just a lot of moments of a person's life that we cannot explain unless we were that person, and there's no true way to do it. No, I didn't feel like it was a buildup. I thought, actually, if you didn't know that he had shot him in real life, you would have been surprised it happened at that moment. Because when he drives up, you have no idea. Guy, and the other guy's in the car, the security guy's in the car, and you're like, what? I think that's a perfect analogy for this movie and this guy's life. You have no idea where he's coming from, what he's thinking, what he's doing. I bet you his parents didn't either. I bet you that's why his parents had to buy him a friend, because they had no way of encouraging him into doing anything because they didn't know. They're big horse training.
Yeah.
I can't think, equestrians. The family is, and they have all these trophies, and John DuPont goes out and does this wrestling match in the movie and wins a trophy, even though you see Anthony Michael Hall. Good for him. Good for him. Good to see.
Yeah.
He's sort of his personal assistant. He's paying the guy that John DuPont was wrestling.
And John DuPont knows that that's happening.
Of course he is. And he takes and John DuPont wins the wrestling match because the other guy throws it because he's getting paid. And then he takes this little trophy and says to his mom, I want to put it in the big trophy case. And she looks at it and she's like, yeah, no. We'll put it in the what's-majiggy trophy, the lesser of the
little one.
Yeah, the one that's not important to this family. They had no way of knowing what this man needed or wanted. None. They didn't even know what their own kid wanted or needed. So when he shoots him at the end, I think I'm twofold on this. I am of two minds on this subject. I would love to hear what Bennett Miller's interpretation was. At the same time, I don't want to know at all.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand it. I felt something, but it didn't feel like it was building.
Is it frustrating to you? I mean, is the whole thing frustrating to you? Because I feel like I got a little bit more out of it and I understood it in a particular way, which could be totally different than other people, but I still felt like there was a narrative and I followed it in my own way.
When you go into a museum and you see a piece of work that has been considered a classic, you go see the Mona Lisa, and you're looking at it. Do you really know why you are looking at it and feeling the way you're looking? Do you know why that people consider this a huge piece of art? No, but you're sitting there looking at it, feeling something from it. Mm-hmm. Whether or not that can be defined is not ever frustrating to me.
Okay.
What could be taken as frustration, I can hear what you're saying in my voice now that you just said that. It's not frustration. It's actually enthusiasm over wanting to know and questioning it and not being able to figure out what the right question is that's going to give me the answer. Not frustrated at all. I felt a little blank after the film. I felt a little numb after the film. I felt bleak, but I think those are just adjectives that are on the surface. I think this goes way deeper than that. And to these people's credit, I have not stopped thinking about this film since I saw it. So that's always a good sign for me. So don't take my enthusiasm as frustration. I want to know. So as an art lover, as a theater lover, as a movie lover, we thought we had the answers. It was the questions we had wrong. I cannot figure out what to ask about this movie that's going to make me go, oh, okay, I get it for that level. Way back to Antichrist. We were talking about that in the beginning of the podcast. I'm not sure what that movie's about, but the second time I actually watched it, believe it or not, I got more out of it and I went, oh, okay, I'm seeing it from this perspective now. So maybe that'll happen with this, but I'm not sure.
You're not sure if you want to do that a second time?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so do you know two words we've not said during this whole review? Steve Carell.
No, I realized it about a half an hour ago. I realized it a half an hour ago, and I knew it was going to happen because he is so entrenched in this character. It's ridiculous. It's giving me, look, dude, goosebumps. Like, it's ridiculous. He, without a shadow of a doubt, will be nominated. That's all I need to say.
Yeah.
I mean, he is so there. It's spooky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that came from. Well, actually, you get little glimpses of it throughout his career. The Way Back, Little Miss Sunshine. He has a depth to him.
But I mean, you can call him. He's a comedy writer. He's a comedian. He's not a stand-up comedian, but he's a comedy writer and he's a comedy actor. And comedy inherently comes from like truth and a brokenness and a seeking. They're seeking. They want people to laugh at them.
Right.
I mean, in general, if you're nailing somebody down to like this is a comedian or a comedy writer or a comedy actor, then yes, they do, and that's why. I mean, look at Jim Carrey in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I mean,
yeah, but he's taken a little bit longer to get there for me. Eternal Sunshine is a perfect example of what you're talking about, but. Does Jim Carrey have, not to ever compare anybody, but does he have the stillness in him that Steve Carell exude?
Well, so
there's such stillness in it.
Yeah.
How did he sit still for that long of a period of time with all the prosthetics and he must have just been dancing on the side of the set when he was done because he's so still.
And I think a lot of people have said like, oh, the prosthetics weren't needed and all this stuff. I think the prosthetics helped me as a viewer and probably helped everyone as viewers to divorce him from like just looking at him and being like, oh, look, it's Evan from Evan Almighty. You know what I mean?
I think that's a compliment that they're saying that, though. They're saying that his performance is so on point that you don't need the prosthetic nose. So the only reason I went and looked up John DuPont is to see what he looked like.
Yeah.
And then I started reading and I got into his life.
Yeah.
He did look like that. He did,
especially
especially later on in life. He had blonde hair younger on in life, but you see this
later
character.
on he's got that like salt and pepper type hair.
And balding a little bit. And
the big nose. But
and I know this is a terrible thing to say, but with all that money, did they never think that... I'm not going to say it. I was going to say something about plastic surgery, but I don't want it to be judgmental about a person.
Maybe he doesn't care.
But obviously not. I mean, obviously not. Obviously, he doesn't care about a lot of things about the way people think because, who pulls out cocaine in a helicopter when you're first having a party with somebody? I mean, the first time you're ever hanging out with somebody. I mean, I guess that guy does, but I don't know very many people. I don't know why that part of his life didn't bother him, but... obviously, people were bothered by things he did and said. But anyway, back to Steve Carell, because that's the important part here. Did I know he had that in him? Maybe instinctually after the performances I just mentioned, especially Little Miss Sunshine. Yeah. He's brilliant in that. And then he's harder and way back. So he has a depth that I saw coming a little bit. Oh, you know what he's great in is Dan in Real Life. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Yes. They're charming together, him and Juliette Binoche, right? Yeah. But anyway, so I have a hard time seeing that was Steve Carell. There was nothing. You can tell by the tone of his voice it's him, but the cadence and the pace of his voice is completely different than anything he's ever done. The way he breathed.
Oh, yeah.
It was brilliant.
That first scene, I mean, with him and Mark, yeah.
When he walks into the room and realizes that the younger brother has come to Foxcatcher, and he gets ready to say something to the lawyer, I guess it's the lawyer, and he goes, pause. Oh, hi, so-and-so. Pause. You made it.
He's on his own
And that's
time.
way more inflection than he puts in there. But by those idiosyncrasies, those little things, you get clues to what John DuPont was about. So hands down, it's one of the best performances of the year. Will he win the Oscar? I'm not sure. I have no idea. Let's get to Mark Ruffalo before we get to Channing Tatum, because we got to spend a little bit more time on Channing than Mark. Everybody's been slotting him for an Oscar nomination, and at first I wasn't seeing it. I was like, what's he doing? He's good. He's always solid. He's solid in everything. He sort of doesn't have anything other than the Mark Ruffalo thing that he does. He was nominated for The Kids Are All Right. I thought he was great in that, but I didn't think it was anything if you're talking about a character versus just being, and we've talked about the everyday guy. That's great that those people get nominated. So it's great that he's recognized like this. Then the scene comes where they're filming him and he has to say, what does he have to say that I like John DuPont or
No,
John?
I see him as a mentor, I think.
Dude, seriously, that right there will be the scene they show at the Oscars. It is the most uncomfortable scene I've seen in a film in forever. Right there, that's the Oscar nomination right there. Because you can see he can't say it, but yet he has to say it, and he realizes he's on film, and then he gets a little choked up like, I'm not a liar.
He's dying a little bit.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm stealing that from you. That's exactly how I'm going to describe that scene. It's breathtakingly on point. I was like, okay, I'm backing away from Mark Ruffalo. You take that Oscar nomination. Okay, not to downplay any of that. I figured out why Channing Tatum is not getting the Oscar buzz and the recognition that he's supposed to be getting.
Okay.
Do you know why?
No.
He's the lead character.
So there's no way that he's going to be able to. You don't think that the studio is going to push him as best actor
They probably won't.
because of Steve Carell?
That's exactly right. But he's the lead character.
Oh yeah, he is.
It's his story.
He's the impetus for the whole movie.
It's his story. And,
it starts with him. It ends with him.
And I just have to say, all my friends are going to love that I'm saying this right now. I was completely 100% right about him. He is so dead on. It is going to be a shame that he doesn't get an Oscar nomination. He is incredible. I have never seen anything like that from him at all, ever. I knew it the very first moment I laid eyes on that poster, and we talked about it.
Yeah.
He is special in this film. His performance is special. It's a shame that Steve Carell is so on point and so entrenched that people are people not seeing it? Did you see it? Like, did you see his performance as...
Oh, you mean see it before it happened? You mean
No,
like,
I mean like in the movie, were you watching it going, wow, this is a standout performance?
Are you talking about Steve Carell?
Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum. So there were certain scenes where I could see that it wasn't a like fake brooding, like it didn't feel like he was. It didn't feel like he was acting like he was sad, or acting like he was frustrated, or acting like he was, which you would expect from somebody who's been in 21 Jump Street,
Well, so does Jonah Hill, and he has 2 Oscar nominations
true.
under his belt, so no one can tell.
But what you know what I'm saying? Though?
Yeah,
Like,
he's a very good-looking
on face
movie star
value.
looking, yes.
exactly face value. It doesn't look. Yeah, he wasn't doing what most people would assume him to do. He was living in that character, I think, and it's you can see that specifically in the scene where he loses his first match in the World Championships, and he has to go back. He just goes back to his room because he's got 3 matches and it's like best of 3. And so, he has to win the next 2 matches. And he's got all this pressure that he's put on himself and that he feels that DuPont has put on him, even though I don't know how much pressure there really was for that. Or this may have been the Olympics. I can't remember which one. It's a little hazy now. But anyway, he's lost a match and he goes in there and he orders everything off of the menu and he starts, eating a bunch of stuff. But there's that portion of the scene where he gets so mad at himself. I mean, he's kind of pushing on a bruise.
Yeah.
And he's trying to like numb that so that it doesn't hurt. And he just beats himself. He physically assaults himself.
Yes, he does.
And he slams, it's in the trailer, he slams his head into this mirror, which was a real mirror, was not a fake mirror, was not sugar glass.
Right.
It was real, and I don't know if he had stitches or what, but it was something that was shocking to, it sounds like everybody, even Channing Tatum on the set, that it happened.
Was he not expecting to do it?
He didn't know
It just
what
came out.
was happening.
Okay, right there is exactly what's so great about his performance. He's so locked into it that that wasn't even a choice. The choice had already been made. We just have to figure out why we made the choices. The Matrix, okay? Mm-hmm. Weird, strange analogy, but that's exactly the point. He had no idea he was going to do that. He was so focused and locked into that character that came out. We talked about Denzel Washington and Malcolm X. He would do these speeches and he would go back and watch the takes and he was like, I have no idea I was saying that. None. And Spike Lee is like, yes, keep saying stuff like that. But he's like, I have no idea where it's coming from. Because you get so locked into it that, and do you think people are not recognizing his performance for as great as it is because of Steve Carell? Or do they, because you don't see, a lot of the critics have said he's outstanding in this movie, but he's not nominated for anything yet. So could he be that possible one that shows up that people are not expecting? Like Clint Eastwood in $1 Million Baby. No one was expecting that, but it showed up. And it's a well-deserved Oscar nomination. It's one of his best performances. But I wasn't as joyful about being right as I thought I was going to be, because I love that. But I was so happy for him that he has that in him, and it's going to take him to whatever next level. People are not.
This is not the end of his career.
Never.
Yeah.
Never. And I won't be surprised if he shows up on the list. Where he shows up is the question. And I think everybody will talk about how it's a surprise. If it doesn't happen, I'll be disappointed. I'll tell you that much.
Well, Golden Globe nominations came out. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor for Steve Carell, and Best Supporting Actor for Mark Ruffalo.
Best Director too?
No.
Really?
And then Screen Actors Guild has Carell and Ruffalo in there also. So
yeah, he's.
Although I'm just looking through these awards and nominations. It won for Best Director at Cannes, whatever you want to call it.
Not a surprise at all. Makes perfect sense. Did Steve Carell win it? Cannes?
No, it wasn't nominated. I don't know. Do they do actors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't. None of the actors were nominated. It was nominated for the Palme d'Or, so that's like their best picture.
Right. Exactly.
But it didn't.
But
win.
it won Best Director.
Won Best Director. Yeah.
Wow, that's a feat.
Yeah.
That's something. I call the Cannes Film Festival. I can't speak. The Cannes Film Festival, the Pulitzer of the film world. For whatever reason, it's elevated, and it's not something that a lot of American filmmakers, directors, actors win. There have been quite a few, but it's not as Hollywoodized, if you will. Even though it's a big festival and it's a big commercialized thing, it seems to be a little bit more intangible than the Oscar, if you will. But
yeah. It's where like Pulp Fiction got the Palme d'Or and it,
right.
didn't win.
But if you say to somebody so and so won the Oscar, they're like, oh, cool. If you say so and so won the Cannes Film Festival award, they're like, what?
Yeah.
So, but that's the world we live in. But real quick, Channing Tatum, do you think he deserves an Oscar nomination for the little bit that you're aware of it?
So whenever you ask me these questions, I don't feel like I have enough of I'm not plugged in to the award situation as much as you are, and I don't feel like I have a leg to stand on saying yes or no. But and I haven't seen enough of the movies. So would we kick out? I haven't seen Imitation Game. So does that mean once I see Benedict Cumberbatch, is that going to be would that kick him out, or would whatever, Eddie Redmayne for Theory of Everything, would that kick him out? So for me, if you had to have me name 5 best actor nominees right now, he'd probably be in the top 5.
Okay.
But I haven't seen, half of these
Were
movies,
you
so.
as impressed, if you want to compare, as you were with Steve Carell? Did you know Channing Tatum had that in him?
I think I expected more out of Steve Carell than I did out of Channing Tatum.
Interesting.
And seeing what he did, seeing what Steve Carell did with this role, solidified what I'd hoped, or it fulfilled not my expectations, but it fulfilled what I had hoped. But the Channing Tatum, the performance that he gave was much more than I had expected.
Well, not to take anything away from Steve Carell, but I call it the Rain Man syndrome, or the My Left Foot situation, where when you have a physical thing going on, then it tends to be, I wouldn't say easier, but you can lock on to something. You can hold on to something whenever you're coming out of it. You can physicalize where you're at, and that can bring you back in. That's what I imagine. So Channing Tatum, other than the facial Why are you smiling?
I'm sorry. I was thinking about a perfect example of that was when he's at the shooting range with these cops, and the way that he's standing,
Yeah.
he kind of looks like the Penguin.
Yeah.
And his feet are all like cocked, and he's sideways.
Yeah.
And
He's completely different than everybody
and
else.
his knees are locked.
Yeah.
It's just such an awkward, and I think that it's just a scene. There's no dialogue, but it's just like, I think it's Channing Tatum looking over at him, and like seeing him, and you can see, like, for me, like what I get from that particular shot is that these guys are just humoring him, just like all the wrestlers are humoring
See, I
him.
get that he's the odd man out. He fits nowhere in the lineup. He fits nowhere in the world except for in his own little space, and that's it.
But to me, I guess and we're going back to this, but to me, I guess the only reason those guys are there is because he has an awesome shooting range, and he probably pays for all of their ammunition, and he gives them a bunch of fun, cool stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But what is the director or the storyteller? And it's Dan Futterman again, who did Capote.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that this was written with somebody else too.
Co-written with E. Max Fry, who is the director and writer of Amos and Andrew.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's weird how it's like my movie list. You would never, which one of these don't go with the other.
I know.
But Dan Futterman, who's also an actor too,
Mm-hmm.
I believe he was nominated for screenplay for Capote, and I think he wrote that by himself, if I'm not mistaken. But I think what they're trying to tell us in that scene is not that Steve Carell or John DuPont bought these people to come shoot guns. What they're trying to teach, or they're trying to show us, at least me, was that he was the odd man out, that he was the strange one. Look at how everybody else stood in a certain direction and knew what they were doing. And John DuPont, once again, does his own thing, stands his own way, has no idea what he's doing. He really has no idea about wrestling either. Mm-hmm. That's evident in the scene that he does when he's trying to show off for his mother.
Oh, yeah.
It's terribly uncomfortable.
Yep.
It's mesmerizing how uncomfortable it is. So I think that's just one of those scenes where you're finding out that this guy does not fit. He does not fit. He doesn't fit in the barn with the horses. He doesn't fit in the trophy room. He doesn't fit in the wrestling world. He doesn't fit in the politic world that he's doing cocaine before he goes to.
But he wrote and published like multiple books on birds. And he like discovered like 20 different species of birds.
And what do you do when you watch a bird? And how do you do it? You watch it by yourself, through binoculars, and you're looking at a different perspective that you will never get to. You will never be able to fly. You will never look that beautiful. You will never get to that top of that tree. That's a perfect analogy for John DuPont's life from what I saw from Foxcatcher. Okay. And to Bennett Miller's credit, and don't get me wrong, my frustration and confusion is a compliment because I'm grasping at what did it touch inside me that has made me not stop thinking about it ever since. Mm-hmm. And I thought I've been thinking more about the situations than the actual characters, which says more about Bennett Miller's directing style than anything. Mm-hmm. I haven't been thinking, John DuPont would probably be doing this if he was still alive. I'm wondering what the brothers are doing right now. Well, we know what the one brother's doing. Nothing. The other brother, what's he doing? You see a little snippet at the end of the film. I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking, why did I feel so uncomfortable at that shooting range scene? Why did Channing Tatum eat all that food like that? What is it about human nature that makes people go to those places that they went? So it's high marks for me. It's a compliment. I say see this film if you're interested in film making at its best because it is top notch, hands down.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially if you made it this far into the podcast, then you're really excited about this movie. You hopefully have already seen it. But to me, I'm going to see it again because I want to either solidify what I felt the first time or explore kind of some of the things that you've talked about, looking at a few scenes in a different way and see what I can get from it.
Haven't we talked about other films that we wanted to revisit and then see what we thought about it a second time? We should do a podcast on that.
That sounds good. Spend 20 minutes on each one or something like that.
Yeah, and say, hey, we've got this new perspective, or no, we feel exactly the same way. Whiplash. We talked about that with Whiplash.
I'm going to buy Whiplash.
Yeah, we talked about what it's going to be like to see that a second time. Yeah.
Well, I've seen it twice.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But I got more out of it the second time. I'm excited about what's going to happen the third time. So, I mean, I'll really drill down by that time, I think. So,
Do you think these directors know that there are people out there who are watching their films this many times and who are as perplexed as we are and having an hour and a half conversation about one movie where we've pretty much said nothing? I mean,
That's
with all due
true.
respect to us,
Yeah.
we don't know what we're talking about on
No.
this level, but it has.
But it sparked a conversation, and it makes me think about my life. It makes me think about relationships that I have. It makes me think about people that I've come across, and trying to see things from their perspective, because that's the amazing thing about film, is that you have the power as a filmmaker to put the audience in a particular character's frame of mind and move towards that, because the way that things are shot, or the way that how music is used, all of those things can help inform the viewer on what that particular character is going through, or can divorce the viewer from anything and then allow them to like make their own judgments on. I mean, you have to work at it, but as a viewer, but you are able to make your own judgments on a particular situation.
Okay,
So,
two real quick things. I actually did something similar to that, but what I do is I think to myself, what would I do if John DuPont approached me for whatever reason?
Sure.
Like he wanted to build a theater in his house. Who knows?
Sure.
Would I be able to see the way that I'm watching as an audience member and seeing, wait, this guy's a little off, guys. Well, you might not want to take him for face value. And that might be a judgment call later on after the film was over with. But I'm wondering to myself, what would it take for me to move my family to this house? What would it take for me to shut myself up in a house and drink and do cocaine and eat a whole bunch of food and get fat again and not wrestle and not do the thing that I love? What would it take? Is there a part of human nature that all of us can relate to that? Not relate to it, but is that all in us? There are certain things that we all have to do. We have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to go to the bathroom. So there is connection automatically from the physical things we have to do. But is there an emotional connection that would lead me down similar paths? That's where my brain goes. And you said something about it being silent and there was no soundtrack except for who? The only song in the movie is a Bowie song.
it is a Bowie song.
Bowie again.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
There's something cinematic about David Bowie's music, and we talked about that. But it is.
but in the back of my head when I'm watching it and the song came up, I thought, I hope this is the only song in the movie. So I could say it's the only song in the movie, and it's a Bowie song again. Mm-hmm. So interesting. I mean, it's appropriate, and it's a little on the nose, that they use that song. But at the same time, it fits perfectly in what's going on. Mm-hmm. And you're right. There is something cinematic about Bowie's music that just fits, even though we've heard that song 1,000 times. Do you know who does the backup vocal to that song? John Lennon.
Oh, wow.
I know, right?
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It's interconnected, the world of music on a level that I don't think most people know about or would even associate, like Ben Crosby and David Bowie singing.
Oh, yeah,
the
Little Drummer Boy.
Which I love that
I love that
version.
too.
I think it's Ben Crosby's daughter who was a Bowie fan who said, you better do this.
Oh, cool.
He's like, David Bowie, who? What? What's that guy wearing makeup for? What?
Yeah.
And his daughter was like, you need to do this. Trust me. And it's probably the most unusually pleasant Christmas song out there. It's beautiful. The melody of it's beautiful. Anyway, I digress. Bowie.
That's right. All right. Well, if you guys want to check us out online, our website is actorandengineer.com. On Facebook, you can go to our page at facebook.com/actorandengineer. And on Twitter, we're @actorengineer. And we'll see you next week.
Until then.
Bye.